check. Good.
Yes, here and Jones. Okay, ladies and gentlemen of the media, I appreciate you coming out on short notice today. My name is John Morganelli, District Attorney for Northampton County, and seated to my left is Lieutenant Joseph Sokolowski, who's the Commander, Lieutenant Commander of the Pennsylvania State Police Troop M. To my right is Detective Glenn Deist of the Northampton Borough Police Department, and the far right is Chief Ronald Morey of the Northampton Borough Police Department. We're here today regarding the disappearance of Jessica Lynn Padgett, and just want to give a little background information before I turn this over all to the Lieutenant for further development. As many of you know, on Friday, November the 21st, 2014, at approximately 8:30 a.m., Ms. Padgett had arrived at her place of employment, which was in the borough of Northampton. And she arrived at work with her 2-year-old son and was operating at that time her vehicle, which was a white Subaru Outback station wagon. On that day, at approximately 12:50, which is 10 of 1, Padgett left the child care facility where she was employed. She indicated to her co-workers that she needed to go to the home and the office. It's one location, it's a home office of her stepfather, to use a fax machine, and that she would be right back to finish her work shift. She left the child care facility in the borough of Northampton, left her son in the care of fellow co-workers, and never returned. That was the last time that Ms. Padgett was seen. The stepfather, whose home that she arrived at that day, his name is Gregory Robert Graff. He resides at 451 Covered Bridge Road, Allen Township, Northampton County. He resides there with Ms. Padgett's biological mother, Danielle. During the time frame from last Friday until today, the borough police and the borough of Northampton, working with the Pennsylvania State Police, were attempting to find out the whereabouts of Ms. Padgett and what happened to her. On Saturday, on November 22nd approximately, the Pennsylvania State Police sort of took control of the investigation because of the fact that they have many more resources to devote to this, and Lieutenant Sokolowski had devoted all the resources available to him to try to find out what happened. And over the last few days, the investigation moved very well, and it moved along quite well. At this time, I can tell you that unfortunately we have sad news to announce today that Jessica Padgett is deceased. She's the victim of a homicide and in custody today, and I authorized the filing of a charge of criminal homicide against her stepfather, Gregory Graff. The investigation has determined that Mr. Graff is responsible for killing this lady in the home and disposing of her body on the property. The body of Jessica was discovered today by the Pennsylvania State Police, and the family members of Ms. Padgett have been notified. The investigation in this case by the State Police, I will say early on, focused on Mr. Graff because of inconsistent statements that he was giving with respect to his activities that day, and did not correspond with the investigation information that was being developed by State Police. On Monday, when I was there meeting with the investigators who did an excellent job on this case, I was informed of some of these inconsistencies, and further inconsistencies were developed over the next 48 hours. And the information, and I do have a copy of the criminal complaint that has been filed in this matter for some of the members of the media, in case you can't get them because of the lateness of the day and the holiday. But the affidavit of probable cause in this case, which has been prepared by Trooper Barton Josephowitz, who is the chief investigator on this case, has outlined the probable cause. And essentially, the information was finally, that was developed, was the individual in this case, now the defendant, Mr. Gregory Graff, was confronted with it. And during an interview with the investigators, he did admit that he intentionally and knowingly caused the death of the victim at his home. He related that he utilized a firearm to cause the victim's death, and that he then took the victim's body and disposed of it on his property. He, as I indicated, is now been charged. He's in custody of the Pennsylvania State Police. At this time, I'm happy to turn this over to the Lieutenant for anything he'd like to add in terms of the investigation and the work that your guys did, Lieutenant, and as you developed it. So feel free to move over and take the spot here.
Before I get started, on behalf of the Pennsylvania State Police, I would like to offer my condolences to the Padgett family, her husband and her children, and all the family. This is nothing short of a tragic event. I also have a statement from the Padgett family that...
I'm sorry, can we just have you slide over so all the mics can hear you? I don't mean to interrupt, I apologize. We just want to make sure we can hear you.
I have a statement from the Padgett family that I would like to read on their behalf. And it goes, "We are devastated by the loss of Jessica. She was a beautiful, vibrant young woman who was beloved by her family and friends. The world shines less bright today. We would like to thank the Pennsylvania State Police for their tireless efforts in bringing her home to us. We would like to thank the public and the media for spreading her picture far and wide. We are deeply moved and very thankful for the endless volunteers who gave their time and effort in searching for her. We ask that you please respect our privacy while we grieve." That was a statement that was given to me from the Padgett family. And again, I would like to thank also the media and the volunteers who gave their free time in an effort to find and locate Jessica.
Could you spell the stepfather's name for us, please?
I do have it here. It's Robert Gregory Graff, G-R-A-F. Mr. Graff was born on October the 6th, 1961, which I think makes him 53 years of age.
What happened in that house?
Well, as you know, the investigation is still ongoing. There's still work that the troopers are doing in this case. But based upon the information that the lieutenant's men have given me so far, it appears to me that the motive here was a sexual assault motive. There's definitely a sex angle to this crime. That is still being developed in terms of the particular nature of it. But based on what the investigators have learned, there's clearly some motive that involves a sexual assault, I would call it that, or an attempted assault on this victim.
Did she resist? Is that what?
We don't have all the information now. He did give us a statement in terms of what his perspective is in terms of that, which indicates that was not the case. But we still have to do more work on it. And the fact is that this body was just discovered, today, and we don't have the benefits of an autopsy yet. But we do know this is a homicide because obviously her body was buried on this property. There was a visual done by the investigators, isn't that correct, Lieutenant? Right. Which seems to indicate that there's an injury to the back of the head, which would be likely a firearm, a bullet to the back of the head, which is consistent with what the defendant has said, that he did cause this death by firearm. But until the autopsy is done, there will also be a sexual protocol that's performed on this victim. We still are a little bit hesitant to buy into the version of events that is offered by the defendant, but information he's given us has led us to believe that there's a sexual motive in this whole matter, unfortunately.
So she was killed during the course of a sexual assault?
That's not clear yet. It's being developed. All we can say today is that there's a sexual aspect to this. Whether or not she was killed prior, during, or after, we're not prepared to go that far yet until we further develop that information.
Had they had problems in the past? Had she had problems with him?
There was no indication that she had any type of relationship with him that was other than congenial or good. She had worked for him at some point and had access to his house.
How long had he been her stepfather? When did he marry her mother?
I believe about the age of that she was 12.
Okay, so for a long time, he's been in her life.
And don't quote me on that direct age, but it's been some time.
Okay.
Was And I'm not familiar with the family situation. Was Ms. Padgett's mother in the home at the time?
Ms. Padgett's mother and the stepfather resided at that location. They ran a fencing business together. But the mother, the natural mother of Ms. Padgett, was away in Florida. I think she had left Wednesday and wasn't scheduled to come back until Saturday. So there clearly was a time when Mr. Graff was alone in that home, which certainly gave him an opportunity to commit the crime that he did in secret.
You had searched the home earlier in the week, is that right? Or
We
how-
searched it yesterday.
Oh, yesterday.
We had a
Okay.
search warrant that was approved yesterday. Actually, we went there Tuesday night and on a consent search and backed off and got a search warrant yesterday, and was at the house yesterday.
But the body was discovered today?
It was discovered today.
Can you tell us where?
It was discovered on the property, behind a shed on the property.
Where is the property located?
It's in Allen Township on Covered Bridge Road.
And this is in a relatively close geographical area, isn't that right, Lieutenant, in terms of the location of the residence and the business where Ms. Padgett worked? We're talking about a pretty small geographical area,
Within a couple miles.
within a mile or so.
That's Cover Bridge.
Covered Bridge.
Covered Bridge Road.
Covered.
Covered.
Where specifically was she killed?
Have you been able to determine that, right?
Well, we would be going by statements that were given by the defendant, but we believe she was killed in the house.
In the house and not the garage where the...
Correct.
Okay.
It appears that information is corroborated by some of the physical evidence that have been observed by the investigators as well.
And forgive me if you said this already, he confessed this morning.
He gave a statement, and that statement, as stated in the affidavit of probable causes, he basically acknowledged and admitted that he did in fact shoot Jessica Padgett, causing her death.
And that was this morning that he gave
That
that
was,
statement.
yeah, sometime this morning.
Okay.
Do you believe he then drove her car to that Dollar General and left it there and walked back, or?
The investigation, and this is what was great about the work of these investigators, and I'm always impressed by the work of the Pennsylvania State Police, and having the opportunity to work with these men and women, it's just an honor for me. But as they worked through this case, when I got briefed on Monday, I think many of the media knew I had asked for a briefing. What impressed me was the ability of them to obtain videos from the various businesses, which and able to observe this. And yes, to answer your question, they were able to observe what appeared to be the victim's vehicle being driven in within a few minutes after 1 p.m. into the location where it was ultimately discovered by the Borough of Northampton police officer. And when the person got out of that vehicle, although it could not be identified because it was a video that was from some distance, it was pretty much surmised by the investigators that that was not Jessica who drove that car in, and it appeared to be someone who was bigger than her. She was 5'2", I understand. And then there was some development of information that Mr. Graff had dropped his truck off earlier that morning at a location very close to where Jessica's car was parked. And there's a figure who gets out of the car and walks in that general direction of where Mr. Graff had dropped his car off that morning. And then within minutes, the state police were able to see another video which shows his truck leaving within 30 seconds or a minute from the location. So the theory was that Mr. Graff committed a crime, drove the victim's car there, then got in his own truck, which he had brought there earlier in the morning, and drove back to his residence. These investigators were excellent, getting that detailed information, and then leading him on to further investigation, search warrants, which I think, Joe, there was findings of some blood that you guys thought were blood, which sort of moved you further in that direction.
Why was his car parked, his truck parked at another location? Did he give any indication?
The information that was given was that earlier that morning, he had asked one of his employees to pick him up down at that location because he wanted to have his truck serviced at Harhart's Garage, which is very close proximity to this area where the victim's vehicle was found. An employee did in fact pick up the defendant at that location, noticed where the truck was parked. The truck really wasn't really at Harhart's. It was near Harhart's, but it wasn't really in their lot, as I understand it. And in the investigation done by the police department, they later determined that in fact Mr. Graff never had contacted Harharts about an appointment. They were completely unaware that he was saying that his car was there for repairs, and he never actually had his car, or his truck repaired at that location. So we're still trying to develop that information as to whether this might be some evidence of premeditation, or whether he, had good intentions to drop his truck off. We're taking a hard look at that, and, myself, along with the lieutenant here and the investigators, will make some determination when we are able to look at all the evidence in the whole context of the event.
Can you guys explain how a gun gets into his hand? If there's some sort of a sexual encounter or whatever, at what point does he grab a gun and shoot him?
We're still developing that, Riley, in terms of what came first, and but I think that, and I'll let Joe answer this, there was some evidence that he was familiar with firearms and had firearms, is that right?
He was an avid hunter, and he had numerous firearms in the house. So he had access to a number of firearms at any time.
Do you have a mugshot of him available?
I don't have photos. I don't know if the police have that.
Do you have any way to get a
I don't
mugshot
have
of him?
Does he have any criminal history?
As far as criminal history goes, there's nothing serious
Yeah, nothing that we can
develop.
develop at this time. Any other questions?
How quickly did this occur? If you mentioned that he drove back shortly
Yeah.
after one, so this sounds like
It-
this
it's-
happened.
Yeah,
in
and
a
one of the
moment.
things I think that the investigators impressed upon me was that this happened rather quickly. I mean, if you look at the times of the time she left her place of employment, which is about approximately 10:01, and a few minutes after 1, her car is now being driven into this location where it's found. We're talking about a very short window of time, that from the time she left her employment till the time she must have been deceased already, or that Mr. Graft is driving her vehicle to a location and moving it off of the crime scene. It was a short period of time, and I don't want to be more, I think we're talking less than a half hour, maybe less than 20 minutes. It's difficult, but we're gonna, that information is gonna be provided in detail as we proceed presenting this case. And I do plan on handling this case myself.
Is this a death penalty case, do you know?
That is still not clear yet, Riley. One of the things that I need to look at and really meet with the investigators on is this whole nature of this sexual issue, which is not going to be resolved until we have an autopsy, because I need to know whether this victim was sexually assaulted, whether she was alive, whether she was deceased. We've had cases like this. I need to know those facts. If you're in a commission of a sexual assault, which is a felony, and a murder occurs, it could be what's called a aggravating factor which means death in the commission of another felony, and a sexual assault or rape would qualify. But I'm not ready to make that judgment yet, because I'm not certain exactly what the facts are here and whether we could prove that. But I think the autopsy information is going to be very important in that decision. And so as of today, no determination has been made on whether this would be a capital case or not.
You called him Robert Gregory Graff. Does he go by Gregory?
I'm sorry, I got it reversed.
Gregory Robert.
It's
Oh, Gregory Robert.
I apologize.
One G.
Yeah, it's Gregory Robert Graff. Gregory Robert Graff. Any other questions?
What kind of role, if any, did he play in the search for her?
Lieutenant?
He, again, he gave certain indications of where her body might be found, and we acted upon those again today as a result of a search warrant. And we were able to find where her body was with some help from him.
How about prior to today? I know the family had been searching for her for about a week now, but was he actively part of that?
He was involved, and he was there when the search was going on at his property.
I mean, like, there have been Good Samaritans and volunteers searching since before
Yeah.
today and yesterday.
They had searched his property.
They had searched.
Yes.
Was he part of those search parties?
Yes.
though? He was?
Yes.
Okay.
What
All right.
happens now? Is there an appearance or scheduled?
I think that as far as he was arraigned, or?
He's being charged and arraigned probably as we speak
Yeah,
right now
Where is that happening?
at the Northampton County Courthouse.
The Central Court.
And if I could just take the time to thank Northampton Borough Police Department for their help, and the men and women that served as part of my major case team. And they really worked tirelessly. Some of them haven't gone home in 2 to 3 days, and that's the type of dedication that this case deserves. And I asked them to find Jessica by Thanksgiving, and they did me one day better. So they deserve all the credit.
Yeah, and I intend, I hadn't had a chance to get caught up on this case. Things were moving so quickly, but the family members certainly are sympathies for the loss of this young lady, and I intend to call. I did get a phone call just before this press conference from the sister, who's left a message on my voicemail, and I intend to call her to express that personally. And the mother, obviously, this is a real tragedy, and the tragedy by itself, the loss of life, but also knowing that Miss Padgett had some small children that now do not have a mother. So this is really double tragedy on top of it. Thank you very much.